Three, two, one. Hey everyone, welcome back to Ash on Comics. I'm Ash, as always, and this is today's comic, Archangel 8, by the new AWA Upshot publisher / imprint. I don't know what the deal with this is. I did a longer video on The Resistance, where I talked more, not just about that comic, but about AWA Upshot as well. So this is going to be a shorter review. I'm not going to talk about the publisher. Go watch that video if you want to hear my thoughts. This is a particular book that I was very much probably my second most interested in for the new this new line that's come out. I like the idea of, first of all, I just like gun-toting vigilantes. I'm a big fan of Punisher. So this is kind of up my alley. I don't really know much about the creators, Michael Morrissey, C.P. Smith. The premise of this book is that there's not 7 archangels, as we tend to think biblically. There's an 8th archangel who we don't know the name of, and apparently has been ousted from heaven and is trying to earn his way back by having to do a bunch of grunt work and nasty work. That's the premise. Now, this book doesn't convey that too well. I only know that because I read some of the press material about this book. And this is one of the big titles. Now, one of the things that bothers me personally, this may not bother you, I know a lot of people really like this, I don't like the miniseries. I collect comics because I want to get invested into an ongoing series that just goes on and on and on and on and on. Some people are like, no, I don't want to invest in that. To which, everyone has their own tastes and things that they want. That's fine. But if you're not wanting to invest in it, I would caution you then to think that maybe you just don't like the book that much, right? Like, maybe if you're not wanting, it's like when I talk to people and they're like, oh man, that movie's like 2.5 hours long. Oh, I don't want to sit through that. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, if it's really good, you shouldn't want it to end, right? Like, I never worry about the runtime of a movie. I worry about the quality of it. Generally, actually, I'm the opposite. If a movie's like 90 minutes, I kind of go, oh, because I don't want to sit through a real quick movie that's like really good. Anyways, I'm spinning out on the weeds again, but miniseries are great for like a little taste of something, but comics are expensive. $3.99, 5 issues. That's going to be $20 to read 5 comics, and then it's over. If I'm going to make that sort of investment, I want you, the publisher, to make that investment back into me. I want to keep going. I didn't get into comics back in the 80s and buying X-Men because it was 5 issues and it was done. I got into it because there were hundreds of issues. I kept buying issues month after month, and I kept going backwards and buying back issues, and I could invest in this massive world with all these characters and all these adventures, and they crossed over with other characters, and that's the thing I love about comics, is that shared universe. And the ongoing stories that just never end. These adventures just continue again and again, and let the imagination of these creators. A miniseries can be fine. Some of my favorite comics ever are a miniseries. A miniseries lets you tell a much more concise story with the beginning, middle, and end. Comics, I've heard it said that comics aren't a 3-act structure. They're always a second act. You're just you never tell the first act, you never tell the third act. It's just constantly in the second, over and over and over, which is fine. The second act is usually the most interesting part of a story. Think about like Star Wars, right? Empire Strikes Back is the second act. If you look at the whole trilogy as one story, but I digress. Archangel was something I was very interested in, but I found out it wasn't quite for me. Now, some things that this reminded me of instantly when I was reading the book, I was like, this reminds me of old school Vertigo, say like Hellblazer, if you will, that style. You can see here the art as I'm flipping through kind of has that feel like, oh, this could have been a Hellblazer issue, you know. And if you are one of those people, if you liked that aesthetic, that visual style and appeal, this book will probably be up your alley. But then imagine if you took Hellblazer and you crossed it with Punisher. More specifically, like Garth Ennis's Punisher. You're going to get that here too. So Archangel 8 is an archangel who punishes people. Like, he's essentially the Punisher, except not just a dude. He's an archangel from heaven. And this story goes beyond just, you know, fighting drug lords or doing the typical stuff that Punisher would deal with. He takes jobs that he has to do. As you can see, we got this black guy who looks a little bit like someone. Idris Elba, is the Archangel Gabriel. And Gabriel typically would be the one to fill this role in a lot of other stories, but they made this mythical, you know, fictional 8th Archangel, which I think is creative, and gives him a job, but he finds out through the story that not everything is as it seems, and the target is not just, I don't want to spoil anything for you, even though this book doesn't really tell you clearly who it is an interesting reveal of what's going on. It elevates it to another level, and it adds some things that help separate this book from just being a Punisher clone, and I appreciated that. The art is suitable for the book. It has like I said, the aesthetics are right where I think it should be. I could see this being a Garth Ennis Punisher book. I would be very happy if I were reading Punisher and it looked like this. But it's not exactly the best art. You can have a strong aesthetic without actually being good art, if that makes sense. I did a review of Red Border. I'm mixing up that title. I should probably just look at. Anyways, one of the other books from AWA, and the critique I had of that book was that the art was good, but the aesthetic was off. It was too clean cut. That book should look more like this, in my opinion, for my style. I mean, when I look at this gangster right here, that looks like a real gangster that I'm scared of. Not the gangsters in that book, which just look like cartoony Marvel gangsters. But that's, your miles are gonna, vary. You're gonna have your own different feel of what you like the visual style to be. Like I said, this is gonna appeal to those people who like, the Garth Ennis style Punishers, the Hellblazer, that Vertigo stuff. This is a dark and gritty, not really any heroes type of story. I enjoyed it. And like I said, when the reveal at the end happens, I definitely wanted to know more about where this story was going. But now I'm going to give you kind of my personal feeling on the book, that shouldn't necessarily sway you, because this is a pure subjective reaction. I had a problem with this book, kind of the same thing I have the same problem with Spawn. And that it really stems from my personal beliefs. I believe in God. I would say I call myself a Christian. But more importantly, I believe that the Bible is God's word. I have this fundamental problem when I read fiction that's based on the Bible, and then they not necessarily twist God's word, but they just get it wrong. They misrepresent it. If you're not a believer, or if maybe you are, but you never really read the Bible or anything, and you don't really know what it's about, it's not really going to bother you, right? It's kind of like the same problem that I see like people who, like I have a couple friends that are lawyers, and one of my favorite TV show is the show Suits. I love this show. And they're like, I can't watch that show. And I'm like, why? And I kind of already knew the answer. And it's because it misrepresents how real law is. Like, it's just not at all. Like, but for me as a layman, I don't know how real lawyers operate. It's a fantasy world to me, and I can just get lost into it. And the things that it mucks up and gets wrong don't bother me, because I don't know about it. But I do know about biblical things and how the Bible portrays them. And when you get it wrong, it makes me kind of go, Furthermore, even more importantly, and this is where kind of Spawn comes into play, I have a difficult time rooting for evil, or I should say unrighteous characters. In Spawn, one of the things I don't like what Todd McFarlane does is he makes both heaven and hell the bad guys. It's basically like they're both just really shitty, and like only humanity is good. And it's like, no, that twists me. This makes it as like, yeah, there's heaven. It is the good place is heaven, but it's kind of corrupt, and it's corrupt to the point that it has this angel being kind of hired and or not hired, but like tasked by other archangels, because he's been ousted from heaven. He needs to earn his way, so he's got to do like these kind of slimy, like really just nasty things. And I'm just like, this makes heaven feel like a mafia family. Like it kind of rubs me the wrong way. And I'm not saying necessarily that it should for you. I mean, it should. That's my personal beliefs. But I just wanted to be clear. I don't even really know why I'm expressing this, because subjectivity shouldn't matter as far as review goes. But I guess I'm sharing just because that's what my channel's about, is just talking about comics and how they affect you or what you think about them. So, and I wanted to be upfront that if I'm not super loving the comic book, it's because I have a subjective reason to do so. This book is really dark. It's interesting. It's violent. I like the things that it has. I just almost kind of wish it didn't interject God into it. I wish it just could have been something, I don't know, different, fictitious. It's difficult, right? It's difficult to make it like, make it about an angel, but not be about God. That's weird. So I really like this book, to be honest. I would give this probably, it's up there with The Resistance. I think this is a 4-star book. This is definitely one of the best of the 4 to come out. I'm probably not going to follow it or pick it up, the issues, but like I said, that's my own thing. If this is for you, this is something you should check out. As far as just this is a quality book. I just got to be honest, I guess, on every aspect of it. So maybe there are some people that share similar views about the world that I do. and maybe that subjective feeling might actually matter to you. I don't know. But either way, that's my thoughts on the books. Hope you found it valuable. Hope you found it interesting. I tried not to spoil this book so that you could, if you do want to check it out, you'll be able to, enjoy the reveals and everything on your own and not just know everything that's going to happen. So thanks for watching, and tell me what your thoughts are down below. If you did read the book, what you thought about it. I like to hear other opinions, especially if they don't match my own. I'm not looking for an echo chamber. But if you do share, that's fine too. Like it's nice to know that other people, kind of reaffirm what you felt. But in either case, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.